Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to our live conversation. Today, we are talking about the day's events. I'll get into that in a moment, but my name is Dina, as you already know. Today, I am going to be interviewing, actually just conversing with the lovely and talented Danielle Jardine. She is our very special guest for this evening. The conversations from the couch sessions are an important part of the Willow Tree Summit, as it's really a time and a space to invite in our other experts, our chronic pain warriors. All right, let's get to introducing Danielle. Danielle is a drunk driving accident survivor and chronic pain warrior. Despite living with severe nerve damage in her spine, her occipital neuralgia, and migraines, degenerative disc disease, spinal arthritis, cervical fusions, and a permanent sciatica nerve damage. She refuses to give up fighting for the life that she wants and that she can actively participate in. Danielle is a successful luxury travel agent, which is a career that she fell into after her accident. It enables her to set up her own work schedule and work from her home in Colorado in the mountains, which I'm a little jealous of. She's also in the Emerging Advocate Program with the American Migraine Foundation. Oh, that's cool. And a few of the things that keep her going are photography, horseback riding, and hiking with her husband and her service dog. Danielle, thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Oh, honestly, it's a lot to ask for you to listen to all the sessions from today, to show up tonight to a live session. So it really means a lot to me. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
Now, Danielle and I have done this before. Danielle was one of my first podcast interviews. So she is a seasoned professional. But Danielle, for those who might not have listened to the podcast or who might not know you, tell us a little bit about your backstory.
So prior to 2015, I was an equestrian trainer. I did high-level dressage, and lots of other things. But on my way to a gymnastics class one day, all that changed. I got hit by a drunk driver. He was going 90 miles an hour. And my Ford saved my life. If I hadn't been in my Ford, I don't know what would have happened.
Right.
So since then, it's been doctor's appointments and medical procedures and medication and all that kind of stuff. And over the last, it's 8 years now. It's such a hard thing to have your life turned upside down, and have to try to pick up the pieces again and like recreate something for yourself. But that's basically been what I've been doing for the last 8 years. And clawing my way back to some sort of normalcy, and getting my pain level to a place where I can function. Because I wasn't, there were times when I was in bed and I couldn't walk, and that wasn't okay with me.
Right.
So it's, putting all the things that like you're providing in the summit together. But there wasn't a summit at the time.
I know.
So, trying to kind of, okay, how do I make the medication and the naturopathic remedies and the vitamins, how do I make it all work together?
Right.
How do I make 15 different doctors who all want to see me every month? How do I make them all work together and try to come up with some sort of plan that can support me in the way that I want? Because my experience was it's kind of a one size fits all.
Right.
There's lots of terms like, oh, it's all in your head, or
yes.
Well, if this medication isn't working for you, I don't know what will. Or if you haven't tried X, Y, and Z, then you can't try A, B, C.
Right.
That kind of stuff. So it was, what hoops do I have to jump through to make the medical profession work for me in my life?
Yep. That's why I love your story, because you've done the work, but you also have done the work. So, you've really addressed the biological beautifully. You are working bit by bit. You've gone to the appointments, you've had the conversations, you're seeking help just beyond the medical model box. But also knowing your situation was also a traumatic experience.
Yeah.
How have you found the work over the years to deal with the emotional side?
That's almost been harder than the medical. The way I was raised is you always find tools to help yourself get to where you want to be.
Right.
So for me, it was, okay, I'm going to start talking to a therapist right away. One of your, I think, I forget who it was, but it was the chronic pain and trauma, I think. She had mentioned like, keep a journal,
Yes.
write about it, like process it.
Right.
I think that Nicole also said something similar.
Yes.
That really helped me. I picked a journal that it says something like live every moment or something like that.
Excellent.
And it was basically the motto that I wanted to kind of live by in those first few years. PT never worked for me because, the whole movement thing, you guys were talking about that with Sarah.
Yeah.
Movement in the beginning, because it was so traumatic, it wasn't just traumatic physically, it was emotionally, it was stuck in my body.
Right.
So, I mean, just if any migraine person has gone to PT, they've always had that exercise where you like put the ball on the wall and like then you push into it.
Yes.
That sent me to the hospital. I couldn't do it.
Right.
So I found a Pilates program in San Diego where I was living at the time. And I went to Pilates twice a week and I just worked with the instructor. I was like, hey, look, this is what's going on. These are my limitations. And she's like, great, I'll show you the modified version.
Yes.
And not only did it start to help my body like kind of work through some of the trauma, but it also gave me a way to like be around people again because I was stuck in my apartment and gave me a chance to get outside. It gave me a chance to, support myself in a way that worked for me. And my doctors were totally on board once they, learned that, oh, I'm able to do the Pilates, but I'm not able to do the PT. Okay, fine. That's great.
Let's take it. Yeah.
But Pilates was made for recovery. It was designed for ballet dancers that, needed to recover and, move again, and how do they get their bodies back into that shape?
Yeah. Well said.
Obviously, I'm not a ballet dancer.
But you're a Pilates gal, which is, in my mind, equally as good.
Yeah. So it's how do you support the places that are in pain? So for me, it was my neck and my shoulder.
Yes.
So doing really gentle rehab stuff through Pilates really helped. It strengthened my lower back, which I had a herniated disc down there and I just didn't know it because the doctors just were like, oh, well, you got hit by a car, everything's going to hurt.
Yeah.
So it really helped me be able to support myself. And it was the first time I was like, okay, so I'm going to need to go outside the normal bounds of medication to kind of give myself everything I need.
Right. Got it, girl. Seeking. I love that. Seeking in a very healthy way. I know the seeking word I have to be very careful about because we're really only groomed to seek out, like you said, the medical model, but you had the courage to step outside of that model. And I'm really glad to hear you say Pilates. I am a little biased as that is what I also teach, but it's important also because there's often, and maybe you had this in your head too, when you heard the word Pilates, did you have a notion that perhaps it was, machines and difficult positions and uncomfortable pain?
Kind of, but at the same time, I was raised very naturopathic,
right?
Homeopathic the whole way. I mean, I think the only medication I ever had was maybe antibiotics for like whooping cough or something like that.
Right.
But my family was of the mind of like no vaccinations either. So it was very, very homeopathic. So I had a dog when I was 9 and I got run over by it.
Oh.
And I did the whole, like when you're a kid, you put your arm behind you.
Yes.
So it snapped.
Oh.
My mom didn't want to put me in like traditional PT. And so I went to a Pilates PT.
Oh, wow.
And so I'd already had that experience of like, yeah, they're big, scary, like reformer machines, but they're not so scary because you're using your leverage and your body weight instead. So I had a little bit of an idea, and then I remembered that when I was in the car accident and I was like, oh, maybe this will work for, because I can't no way I'm getting through another PT day.
Yeah, it's true. And thankfully, you had a positive association with the
Yeah.
movement. And that's a really important part of that movement piece. If you don't feel like it's meaningful, if you don't feel like it's comfortable, if you're scared of it up front,
Yeah.
that's when it's going to cause pain. And oftentimes going into a physio appointment has that, even before you're in the appointment, that's the fear that's going through the head. So,
Yes. Yeah. And Sarah, I think it was Sarah, one of the first
yes.
people today who were talking. You guys were talking about movement and fear and whatnot.
Yeah.
And it's not so much, at least for me and some of the other chronic pain people that I've talked to, it's not about the fear of movement, because we all know we need to get up off the couch and walk.
Right.
It's the knowledge that certain movements, even,
Yes.
so where I live in the mountains, as you mentioned. There's a hill. I live at the base of it. And it's a fairly steep, like, incline.
Right.
I can't do it.
Yeah.
But it's close to the house. So what do I do? So for me, it was, okay, I can walk back and forth down my driveway 3 times.
Yeah, perfect.
And then it got to the point where, like, okay, now I really kind of want to get out and move more. And it's not necessarily giving me a migraine every day when I do it. So there's a road across the street. So I have to cross, like, a highway to get to it. But I can walk down that. So, and over 3 years, I've worked myself up to walking a mile when I go out and walk. But I know that if I start feeling that migraine,
yes,
or that neck pain or the back, I'm turning around right away.
Yes.
I can't, I'm not going to push myself farther. Because, like, oh, I should walk more,
right,
or I can walk more on other days. This is what I can do today.
Yes.
And that's what I'm going to do. And that's just going to be good enough. So if I get down on the floor and I do, like the
100s
count, like, hold or whatever with your knees and tabletop for Pilates. If that's all I can do, then that's all I can do.
Yeah.
If all I can do is scissors, then that's all I do, is I do scissors, and it gets the blood moving in my spine, which for me, I've noticed has really helped.
Not a girl.
So, whether it's eating breakfast outside with my dog on the porch and then walking up and down my driveway 3 times, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I try not to push myself. And that's been such a huge, like, that acknowledgement of, okay, I'm okay with what I can do right now.
Exactly.
That's been a huge piece for me.
Beautiful. You just captured all of I hate the word pacing, but it's the word that we use. All the words, all the things we need to about pacing. Like it's the understanding that we need to listen to our body, and we need to stop before we're going to be in pain, because that's when it's uncomfortable. So you've had some time to figure this out, which is amazing. Obviously, you were knowing how long to push it for. So thank you for bringing that up. And you're right. I think it's more or less the fear of pain as opposed to the fear of movement.
Yeah.
Okay. Makes complete sense. And yes, as a migraine gal too, I get it. I found just going for walks sometimes would bring it on if I went too far. So yeah. Okay. Now you've brought up a couple of the speakers. We talked about the writing as being something that was really beneficial to you. Also the pacing, knowing how far to go, and then also sort of being proud of that fact that is what you can do today, and knowing that's okay. So that's important. Yeah. Are there any other, sorry, I'm saying a lot. Are there any other highlights? So let's talk about Dr. Sarah's functional, especially coming from the background that you have. You understand a lot of these concepts, how, the brain and the gut are connected, and how nutrition is really a staple in supporting our cells and our being. Was there any sort of aha moments that you might have gained from Dr. Sarah's presentation?
There were a lot of, like, that rings true.
Okay.
I think it wasn't so much aha because I was really raised with it.
Yeah.
And I mentioned before you started the recording, I'm pregnant, so I'm having to kind of go back to those natural ways a little bit more. Because, it's not easy having your doctors, you have an OB, you have a specialist, you've got, 6 other doctors all trying to work together. So it's kind of, I'm starting to fall back on those natural things. and I prepared for that. So my husband's great. He's helped me a lot with kind of prior to getting on a lot of vitamins and supplementing, because I made the personal choice to get off a lot of medication. Because after my surgeries, I didn't want to be in that like drugged haze.
Right.
I wanted to be, as I mentioned in the bio, I wanted to be a active participant in my life. Kind of going through the motions and sitting there as almost a bystander wasn't working for me.
Right.
So I have an ice machine, and it's a little box. You can buy it on Amazon.
Oh.
But ice is my thing because I have nerve issues.
Right.
So if I can be on ice 24/7 a day,
Yes.
I am happy.
Yes.
I have one of those migraine caps. I've got the ice machine, and I've got 8 different pads for it. One's like a full body that I can lay on. Nice. One actually like goes around my neck that I got after my surgeries. I have one for like my shoulder area and like the bottom of my spine, like neck and my spine, kind of where the thoracic and the cervical meet. And then I have one for my sciatica area. And so I think that, to be honest, was my lifesaver after surgery. I lived on that thing. Hard pain days where I'm like, man, my sciatica is being pinched every time I sit up or, lay down or move.
Right.
I'll get my ice out. Something that's been huge for me is ginger and turmeric.
Yes.
You guys were talking about inflammation.
Yeah.
And like your body almost being stuck in this state, kind of, it's almost a limbo state.
Yes.
And I jotted down that I almost get like, I can feel myself get stuck in like the hyperactive cortisol state. Like my body doesn't, like there's no coming down off of it. It just is like, if I'm in pain, that's where I'm at.
Wow.
So a lot of it for me, the naturopathic stuff was, okay, how do I get my body out of that? Because I've been living in it at the time for like 6 years.
Wow.
So it was like, okay, what can I start doing? So ginger, turmeric tea. I love ginger. Like I start getting a migraine and I start drinking that stuff like it's like candy.
Going out of style.
We order it in boxes. Like we order from the supplier like in bulk.
Wow.
The other thing that really helped was I'm probably going to butcher this, but QQL 10 or whatever it is.
CoQ10. Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, that's good.
That helped a ton.
Yeah.
So like doing the research on like how much do I need per day to help the inflammation go down. So really becoming active in the research of that, because there's different levels and different amounts of it will help with different things. And so that was really huge for me. Other things, so with migraines, people who like live with migraine, and I have 2 different types. I have the occipital neuralgia, which is just like, imagine someone shoving an ice pick in the back of your neck and your entire head being on fire.
Yes.
We process magnesium differently. So what type of magnesium do I need to take that won't actually contribute to it? And as a little side note, your body takes time to get used to these things. So like when I first started taking it, it increased my migraines. But then after like a week and a half, it started to help with my migraines because my body started to adjust.
Wow.
Things like, okay, you need to take a certain amount of zinc with your magnesium in order for your body to actually process it. So learning all these different things was something that I started to kind of get into. So like I'm on a homeopathic, I don't remember what the name is. But I work with a homeopath. And it's allowing me to get off the medication a little bit while I'm pregnant, but I know that I'm going to have to go back on it. So it's really the balance of what naturopathic tools can you use to supplement and age yourself, because
Yes.
it's a balancing act. It's not Western medicine and it's not naturopathic medicine only.
Right.
It's how can I make this all work together so my body can function better?
Beautiful. Really, that is exactly the message I was hoping we were going to get around to today, because I knew you have done the work on both spectrums. You understand both. You're so good. You're so intuitive at picking up on the signals as well. We've talked a lot about that feeling like you're stuck in the muck, and a lot of the presenters have been there themselves, and now they're kind of on the other side. To be able to observe these small things is a big deal. And you are really good at picking up on the nuances. And so that's
Thank
why
you.
I'm hoping, everyone's going to listen to this session. All right. Now flipping it to Nicole, we talked
Yes.
about a little bit about post-traumatic growth. Now, when you hear that word, is it something that brought up any sort of emotions, or did it resonate with you?
Both.
Yeah.
So, and I've noticed it with other chronic pain people, like patients too. But there's such a push for us to get past and put behind us what happened, or put behind us the pain that we're experiencing, or we're pretty much told it's invalid.
Right.
So whenever I hear growth, there's always that like stubborn part of me where I'm like,
Sure.
like, who do you think you are type of
Right.
type of
No,
thing.
absolutely.
But I have, and I mean, all this has come from the fact that I've had 9 years to deal with it, and I've got so much more growth to do.
Yes.
But I don't right now where I am in my journey is the fact that I'm accepting the growth, and I'm like, she was talking about how you acknowledge it. I find, and I have found over the last 9 years or 8 years, whatever it is, that it's kind of like a flip-flop thing.
Right.
Where like you'll go through each level, like she was talking about it was the steps. It was like the 5 steps that she has. Made me realize that the growth is circular. So you'll go through a level of it, and then a year later, something else will hit you.
Sure.
And you're like, oh my God, where'd this come from? I thought I was through this.
Yes.
And then you have to go through the next steps of growth again.
And that seems to be both physical and emotional, right?
Very,
Yeah.
very. There's still times when it was a white 4-door sedan that hit me.
Yeah.
There's still times that little white cars go by me, and it sends me all the way back.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a good point.
If I smell an accident, like that airbag smell, like the burning brakes and the tires on the ground, it like I'm right back there.
Right.
Someone drives by me too quickly, I'm right back there. Like it's just it's the very little things.
Right.
It used to be that sirens would really get me. And I'd have full-blown panic attacks in the car, which is why I had a service dog.
Right.
Because he was my psychiatric service dog, and now he's my medical alert service dog. So he's kind of grown with me.
Oh.
But it's growth. It's however much growth you're willing to make and accept. There's no one else that can force you into it.
Right.
There's no one else that can tell you that you're ready for it. You have to be willing to accept the things to move forward. Right. And that was something that really resonated with me when she was talking about acknowledging the grief that what was,
right,
like whatever your life was, is no more. And for me, the biggest factor was horses, because I've been riding horses since I was 5 years old.
Right.
My mom stuck me on a little pony and like one of those little carousel go around things.
Yes. Oh, yes.
And I was just like, can I take the pony home? So for me, it was a realization that what my life wasn't anymore. Right. And how was I going to not only accept that, because the second you accept it, then it's reality.
Exactly. Well said. Yeah.
It's the acceptance of the reality that your life is no longer going to be the same.
Right.
And as I said in the very beginning, then it became, and it was a process. It was okay, so everyone's telling me I can't ride horses. Everyone's telling me that, I can't do certain things anymore.
Right.
I can't even remember what the other ones were. It was just,
Right.
my life was over if I couldn't ride horses for me.
Right. Yeah.
So it was, how do I have horses involved in my life going forward that will satisfy that part of me?
Right.
And how do I build something without horses being like the centralized aspect of my life?
Right.
And I remember my husband asked me, he's like, well, what do you want to do? What do you want?
Oh.
And I didn't know.
Right.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
There was nothing else that I associated with myself and my image. So it was really finding something that could be that.
Yeah. It's a different identity, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it really does. It strips us of the identity of the person who we thought we were.
Right.
And it's as Nicole said, it's that grieving process. It's the acknowledgement of this is okay to be in, and
Yes.
this feeling of loss, of depression, of anxiety, of
Right.
I don't know.
Yes.
That the I don't know is okay.
Mm-hmm.
That it's okay to not know.
Right.
So
Right.
you just try. So I was lucky enough to go to a school where I got to try a million different things in art.
Okay.
So I went back and I took stained glass classes because I really liked that class. It was beautiful. Violin was something else that I used to play. I used to play violin all the time, but since I separated my collarbone, I couldn't have the violin resting on my shoulder. So I started teaching violin.
Oh, wow.
So I started to try, like, how can I incorporate these things?
Yeah. I love it. Love it. Love it.
I started going down to a Mustang rescue in Colorado. And I did a lot of natural horsemanship. Like, how do you talk with the horses with your body, basically?
Right.
And I started teaching the people there how to work with the Mustangs and how to, like, not break them, but, kind of socialize with them.
Sure.
So it was really like, okay, how can I find something that supports me in what image I want to have?
Right.
But Nicole's, like, what you guys talked about was like, it just rang through, like, true. Like, every single thing that she was saying, I was like, yes.
Yes. Bravo. Yes.
But she was talking about moving forward in the narration and how certain things in your past can, like, how do I say it? The context of what you were told in your past, now can have the impact on how you see yourself or how you act now. Which to me ties straight into the shame. Like, there are things that we're told as kids. Our parents don't mean to do it.
No, they don't.
The way they
But
phrase
it happens.
the way they phrase it,
Yeah.
it sticks with you. And then whether it's the shame or the embarrassment or the fear of having someone else say that to you in that way, when you're going through the journey of how do you recreate yourself,
Right.
you end up having to circle back and go through all those things to try to work through.
Right.
Because in essence, it's a form of trauma. Like, it's not meant to be. It's not meant to be cruel.
Right.
Parents, when you're young and, you pick something out at the mall and you're all excited to wear it on the first day of school and, you walk out and your mom's like, that's completely inappropriate. You look, XYZ, whatever the word is.
Right.
Go change.
Yeah.
They don't realize how, I'm sure their parents did it to them and, they wear certain clothes now because of that. But, working through that, because, like, for me, I couldn't wear, like, high necked things because anything on my neck would give me a migraine.
Right.
I had to cut the tags out of my clothes.
Right.
I did that as a kid, but what I was told is I was sensitive. Oh, you're just being too sensitive. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and my skin was sensitive. I had tactile issues, but I have learned through migraines that that's actually a very common trait and almost like not side effect, but like extra chronic
Yeah.
something that you can have.
Yeah.
So like me brushing my hair, it's actually normal to have it hurt.
Right.
Me not liking certain seams in my socks,
Yeah.
that's actually normal. There's a name for that. It's not just you being sensitive.
Exactly.
What is it, like allodynia or allodania? I don't remember what it's called. It starts with an A.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's basically you become like your body, and it goes back to the fight or fight thing, the whole like high levels of cortisone. Depending on how your body functions
Yeah.
and how your body responds to the migraines, it puts you in that constant state of everything's going to attack my body. So
Right.
then you become sensitive to everything.
Exactly.
So for me, it was, okay, well, I need to become comfortable in myself and whatever clothes I feel comfortable in.
Right.
And that's perfectly okay.
Exactly. It's amazing how that act of telling ourselves everything's okay is extremely difficult to do, right?
Mhm.
So you've obviously had years to do this. I think for our listeners, it's really a visual I like to use is that it's such a path, the path to from one, there's no destination, but from the path
Yeah.
from where they start, like perhaps if they're just learning to ask questions beyond the medical model to the
Yes.
point where, you guys, many of our presenters have gotten to, it's a long way to go. And there's very different, distinct points along the way, and I think what's important too is that, I've said this so many times throughout the summit, but the observations you're making along the way, the awareness you're making along the way,
Yeah.
dealing with that grief part is like way up here. There's all this work to do up until that point. And so if you are listening to this and you're feeling like you're getting a little bit emotionally charged because you're feeling like growth, like who are you? And that's,
Yeah.
it's normal to have that reaction, but it's also so that that there is this end of the spectrum.
Yeah. And I wouldn't even, at least for me, it isn't it. There's never an end.
It's never an
It's
end. You're right.
constant.
It is.
It's
Yes.
kind of like I explain it like this to people. They're like, oh, well, how'd you get your service dog trained? Oh, well, I trained them myself. Oh,
Mhm.
well, are you still training? Well, yeah, of course I'm still training.
Yeah.
The training never ends.
I think
If
we're
you
all in
have,
training all
yeah,
day.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's like, to me, and this might seem really weird to some people, but for me, it's how do I use every scenario and every situation to my benefit?
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm upset about something, why am I upset about it?
Mm-hmm.
What made me so upset about it?
Right.
And I am very specific with my words. I say made me.
Uh-huh.
It's not made, someone else made me. It's what was it? Whatever they said, whatever they did,
Yes.
whatever it was, why am I now feeling the way that I'm feeling?
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, yeah, being able to ride again because
Yeah.
I had surgeries, but I fought my way to that.
Yeah.
If I ride again, okay, great. I have the knowledge that I'm going to be in severe amounts of pain afterwards, but to me, that's worth it.
Mm-hmm.
So what can I use to my benefit, and what to me is worth it
Right.
in the end? There's this theory of spoons,
Right.
spoon theory for chronic pain patients.
Yep.
And I love explaining that because to me, it's how many spoons am I willing to give up for this one activity?
Yes.
What point does it become too much?
Mm-hmm.
Or at what point do I not have enough to give?
Right.
And it's a lot of people say that it takes this many.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I like to phrase it and think about it as, what am I willing to do?
Mm-hmm.
How much am I willing to give for this?
Wow.
Grocery shopping is really low on the list. So I have other people grocery shop and I pick it up from the market.
Atta girl.
But what tools out there that COVID presented,
Yeah, it's true.
now there's grocery shopping for you.
Yeah,
And
that's
it's
true.
not just the expensive Instacart thing.
Right. Yep.
So, what can you use, you, me, anybody in our lives, to make it so that we have the ability to give more
Yes.
to an activity that we want?
Right.
And for me, that was a huge growth, and it's never ending.
Yeah.
I mean, as I said, there's things that I'll be in the middle of my day and someone will say something, or
Mm-hmm.
I'll see a picture of an accident on Facebook, and then it brings something else up for me and I either go through the grieving process or I go through the acknowledgement process or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
But it's being okay with that.
Right. And I think once you understand, because you do have a good understanding of kind of where it's coming from, like your example is a great example of how the brain really processes trauma, pain. So the smell, the sight, the colors, the sound, I think I said sound already, but all of those senses coming together, the memory and your brain's interpretation of it. And so
Yes.
your example was perfect. And so it's imprinted and it
Yeah.
will be there for forever. And so how do we work with it? And that's what you're finding. So you are applying beautifully both the psychological and the physical, to benefit you. And it's a strengths-based approach. You are leaning into the things that are really important to you, the things you think you're good at, which is way better than, what's wrong with you. Go with what's strong with you,
Yeah. Well, and it started out with what's wrong.
Mm-hmm, of course.
And then it turned into, okay, so X, Y, and Z is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I can slap the Band-Aid of medication on it and go through my life with that brain fog and that just knowledge that, oh my God, I'm in so much pain.
Right.
And don't get me wrong, I'm not sitting here in no pain. I'm sitting here in pain.
Right.
But it's to what point it turned into, at least for me, it turned into over the years, okay, this is what I want. Like, this is where I see myself and how, like, the image that I'm starting to build of myself.
Right.
Now, and the medical industry just wasn't supporting it. So basically it turned into me researching, okay, so what can I create for myself? But I get a lot of these ways of thinking. I took teen seminars when I was a teen. It's called Insight. It's a great program. I absolutely love it. And it talks a lot about, like, what are your limiting beliefs? And how do you then create an affirmation to help build yourself up to what you want? Like, how do you get yourself there?
Nice.
So a lot of the things, the way I think is because of that.
Right.
I apply those techniques to this, to my life.
Yeah. It's amazing.
And there's adult versions of that too.
Okay. Sorry, it's called Insights. Okay. I love that. And I'm hoping people are starting to hear that dealing with chronic pain, dealing with trauma is really tapping into deep life skills, right? All the things that perhaps we were or were not taught as children really come into play. And I know that sounds kind of strange for the people who have not been through the same path that you have, that a lot of these life skills are really important. Decision-making processes, how you listen to your thoughts, how you may perhaps negotiate with your thoughts, how you work with these thoughts. That is an important step. That is a big step if you can start to address the thoughts just in general. And you've already done that work. You're continuing to do that work. Like you said, a flare will come up and sometimes you have to tap back into those skills.
Yep.
Communication skills with loved ones. I mean, I think you and your husband are great examples of the work.
We are, but I mean, me and my family, and I don't talk much about my family, but me and my family, it was really hard for them at times because I was going down the more medical path, especially in the beginning, because that's what served me.
Right.
You don't have to do anything that doesn't work for you. So for me, that was the beginning of the self-empowerment.
Yeah.
No, this is what works for me, even though I wasn't raised in this, even though this isn't what my family believes, this is what works for me.
Good girl.
And it wasn't easy for me. I'm needle phobic to the point where I hurt people before my accident when they tried to stick a needle in my arm. So there's so many different types of growth with chronic pain. And I think a lot of people, and for me in the beginning, it's very daunting.
Right.
So it really comes down to what I discovered is, how much do you want to get through this? How much do you want to grow? How much do you want to have control over your life?
Right.
And like my family, completely homeopathic, completely natural, acupuncture all the way type thing. And that's great.
Yeah.
There's no way someone's getting 20 needles into my face to to help
No,
relieve the pain.
exactly.
Right?
No.
So I had to find what works for me. But some people swear by acupuncture. They're like, oh, it just releases all of the trauma from my body.
Mm.
Fantastic.
Right. But
That's
it's
great.
so individual. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I do think the whole, up front, that is why, especially in an injury like a car accident or a list of injuries from a car accident, that is the acute care. And that's where the medical
Yeah.
model really shines. And so, we don't always have the luxury of in that moment of having any naturopathic care. I mean, I
Right.
see that, you have to start off that way. I really
Yeah.
believe there'll be some that don't necessarily have to, but most often you got to start that way.
Yeah.
Once you can, because if you are in extreme pain and it's not being managed, you're not going to want to do
Anything.
anything, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that was what was so big. I think I made note of it. Sarah was talking about like testing and
Mhm.
kind of like incorporating it.
Yeah.
And I think that's huge. But it took me years to get to that point of where I felt like I had my pain under control enough
Mhm.
to even be okay considering, okay, so I'm on it was a pain patch. It was Butrans.
Okay.
And it's like there's oxy and then there's like a couple other things and then like this is a patch and you wear it for 7 days
Yeah.
and it was the only thing that took my pain away.
Right.
Like to a level 3. Like I
Mhm.
mean, other than that, I was like in bed in agony. Nothing could help me.
Right.
But it wasn't until I was on that I was like, okay, now I can start thinking about adding in like the vitamins.
Right.
Okay, so what is
Right.
400 UI worth of vitamin D? What's that going to do? What not even, and it's someone, I forget which presenter, they were talking about quick fixes.
Yes.
Everyone in the pain world, everyone who's in chronic pain is like, what's going to give me that quick fix?
Absolutely.
How is it going to be that, I'm on, I think I met you in one of them, in one of the chronic pain
Yes.
groups or
Pain club
something.
groups?
And
Yes.
yeah, yeah, I'm in a few of them. And people are like, oh, I had surgery 2 weeks ago and I'm in more pain than I was now. Of
Yeah.
course you are.
That's right.
You just had surgery and someone just literally like manipulated your spine.
Yes.
Of course you're
Going
in
to take
more
some
pain.
time. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like for me, my pain didn't decrease after the surgery right away.
Right.
Like, my left arm was completely numb.
Yeah.
So it took, I mean, it's back now, but there's still parts of it. Like I still can't feel the
Mm.
right side of my index finger.
Ah,
Can't feel it.
yeah.
I still have like a scar right here. You can
Mm.
barely see it,
Yeah.
but it's numb. I can like right up here is where I begin to get feeling.
Ah,
So
wow.
it's complete. So there's always going to be a benefit to it, and
Yeah,
there's always going to be a downside to it. The
sure.
question is again, how much of a risk
Mhm.
or what are you willing to
Yes.
settle for?
Right.
And I say settle because a lot of the medication is settling.
Hmm.
You're settling to have it suppressed. You're
Yes.
settling to have your spine more stable and
Yes.
hopefully be out of pain.
Yes.
But the thing that people don't get is surgery is not, and I say people
Yeah.
because I see it all the time on Facebook, and yes, I'm generalizing,
Yeah.
but it's not meant to put you out of pain. It's meant to stabilize.
Right. Take the edge off, right?
Exactly. So
Yeah.
if you think of it that way, and
Yeah.
then you can use whatever you use. You
Yeah.
use turmeric and ginger and QQL10, and there's another one, and I can't think of it right now, but there's multiple vitamins that, help decrease inflammation and help decrease pain.
Right.
I'm not saying it's a miracle thing. I'm not saying that it's that, that's the right path for everybody.
Yeah.
As I said, it wasn't for me in the beginning.
Right. Yep. Eventually, right?
Yeah,
It's an option when you think it's ready or when you're ready or when the time is right.
exactly.
But the good thing is that you had some background in that, even though there was probably a little friction about when you had to start that, you started on your own terms.
Yeah,
That's what we're hoping for, right? Is
yeah.
people at least understand that there is choice because that is
It's
really
not given.
it's not
Yeah,
given. No.
no.
Right.
No,
So,
and the doctors don't, a lot of the time, we hear all the time,
yeah.
oh, this medication is going to be your miracle, or you really need to do this, or,
Yeah.
and for me, someone mentioned it, take yourself out of the situation
Hmm.
and look at it more objectively.
Yes.
And it wasn't until I started doing that
Mm,
that I was able to kind of open up to the possibility of other things.
yeah.
So something else that really works for me is level 4 laser therapy.
Oh, okay.
It really helps with the inflammation.
Good for you. Laser's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
kind of a cool thing. And then like the whole new cryotherapy thing,
Hmm.
that can also really help.
Okay.
Because it jumpstarts your body into um kind of the same idea as like the whole low calorie like carb keto thing while you're fasting, like intermittent fasting, while you're fasting during that time,
Hmm.
your body actually metabolizes things differently and it
Right.
works differently.
Right.
Um, so I mean, I used intermittent fasting to kind of help reset my nervous system sometimes,
Aha.
um, which is partly what I use the cryotherapy for. If
Yeah.
my body is just like firing off the charts and I can't get anything to work,
Right.
I go do a cryotherapy
Yeah.
because it almost restarts my body.
Hmm.
And I do it to the point where I can, like it gets really, really cold
Hmm.
and then you have to slowly raise yourself back up.
Oh.
I'll stop it.
Hmm.
Because eventually my nerve, like it'll reset my nerves, but it also activates my nerves. So,
Right.
and it'll work differently for everybody. But that's really the thing. Everything works different for everybody.
Yeah, exactly. And that's always the hard part. Like that's a good thing, but it's also a hard part because
Yeah.
you've likely felt this in the years that you've tried all these different things and you get a little tired of sometimes trying all the different things, right? But at
Yeah.
the same time, everyone's going to be different as to how much they feel they can tolerate of that. I think that important thing here, boy, I say that a lot in this summit, but it really is just drawing out the key points. There's going to be people at different price points. I don't want people thinking we're trying to spend their money.
God, no.
There are lots of treatments, right, that you can pay for, but there are also things, and you have already shared a lot of them that you can do on your own, and again, you start off with that pain management so that you're getting to a place where you have some clarity and some motivation to be able to now start looking beyond the traditional model.
Yeah. And there have been times when like my husband's even said it sometimes to me, he's like, you've been working really hard. You've been researching all this stuff.
Mhm.
Because I didn't go into the surgeries blind. I researched everything.
Right.
I researched the difference between fusions and disc replacements, and I tried the disc replacement first, and it failed on me, so I had to go with the fusion. But I
Gotcha.
knew what my options and my choices were,
Good.
and then I found a surgeon to work with that.
Good.
Like your first time, like your first opinion, doctor's opinion, your opinion, whatever, might not be the end all be all. Like you
Right.
can continue to research, you can do the research,
Yeah.
you can bring the research to your doctors.
Mhm.
They might not want to listen to you, but
Yeah.
listen to you.
Better to have an informed
Yeah,
position, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, I remember I was going with that. It was the fact that, like my husband said, you've been doing all this research, you've been doing all this stuff. Why don't you just take 2 months off?
Oh.
Like your pain medication's working for you right now. Your migraines medication is working for you. Why don't you just take 2 months and not do any research, not focus on it?
Right.
And it's like burnout with any work.
Oh,
You end
good
up doing
point.
too much. And sometimes if things are kind of at least somewhat kind of working for you,
Yeah.
okay, take a break.
Yeah. Oh, I'm glad you said that.
Go to
I'm
a
so glad.
movie.
Yeah, because part of the issue around pain is focus. When pain is so powerful in changing behaviors, it's what it's meant
Yeah,
to do, that we can often only think about the pain. And so that kind of becomes a form of focusing on the pain, right?
yeah,
So kudos to your husband for you for just taking a step back sometimes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's not easy.
No, God, no. No.
It's not easy. And I know people are going to get the recording, and it's something that's really big for me is that one, everyone's journey isn't the same.
Mm,
You're not going to get to the same place as everybody else, maybe at the same time or just as quick, or,
yeah.
you might find out different things than I found out.
Yeah.
And that's great because then there's more information to share.
Absolutely.
Like your journey doesn't have to look the same as, the person you're sitting next to in the chronic pain group.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's all individual because we don't have shared experiences.
Right.
Like unless there was someone who was in the accident with me, but even in that case, it would have been a different experience and their journey would have been different.
True.
And to me, it's becoming okay with the fact that your journey is going to look different than maybe even you expect.
Yes. Yes. Expectations. I love it. Now, I'm going to ask you one more question. And this might be a tough one, but because I want to be mindful of your time. And also, I know it's not comfortable sitting for this long. However, if I were to say the word to you, contentment, would you say, in your honest opinion, is that something that you've come in and out of now that you are where you are with your experience?
Yes and no.
Okay.
So, I was actually before I went, I went to Japan, about almost a month ago now.
Mhm.
And before I went, I have a cousin who has, what is it? I forgot what it is, but it's basically like the syndrome where a nerve starts hurting. It's not going to stop hurting.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I forgot what it's
Right.
called. It's like C something. I don't remember.
Yeah, it's awful. From the
Yeah,
sounds
it's
of it.
like, yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, from what I understand, like
Complex regional pain syndrome. Is that
yes,
what you're thinking?
yes.
Okay.
So she has that and she's been dealing with it for about 10, 15 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And she was a huge sounding board for me.
Mm-hmm.
Because she tried a lot of the medications that I was trying. So, kind of being able to talk about it. But she asked me a very similar question. She asked me, are you okay with the life that you have right now?
Right.
Basic answer is yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I'm content with where I am. I
Mm-hmm.
like where I live. I
Mm-hmm.
like the fact, like that the tools that I've learned have given me the ability to 99% of the time be fairly content.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's that other part where, like, okay, do you miss the life you had or the person you were?
Yeah.
All the time?
Yeah.
All the time, every day. I
Yeah.
get out of bed and I'm like, man, I miss getting out of bed and not being in pain.
Right.
I miss the fact that I could just roll out of bed and
Yeah.
start my day. Instead, I have to roll out of bed and take a shower and eat some
Mm-hmm.
food and go through the
Mm-hmm.
whole process in order to be
Yeah.
okay for the rest of the day.
Right.
Um,
Right.
there's always those little like pings of, man, I wish, or
Mm-hmm. Oh,
oh,
sure.
I miss, or
Yeah.
sometimes it gets even to the point where, man, this really sucks.
Sure. Sure. It's acknowledging all the emotions of the experience, right?
Yeah, yeah. And
Use it.
it's being willing, at least what it comes down to for me,
Mm-hmm.
is it comes down to being willing to go through basically those 5 steps
Right.
of the traumatic growth
Yes.
over and over and over and over again.
Right.
And just like you said, I think it was, I don't remember which video it was, but you
Yeah.
said that the pain's always going to be with you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's always going to be with you. You're
Mm-hmm.
not going to get rid of it completely unless a miracle happens.
Right.
And that's happened to some people. Some people just wake up one day and they're perfectly fine.
Yeah.
And whether it's they've done the emotional
Mm-hmm.
growth and, released all of it from their body, or whether they've
Yep.
just accepted it and that's been enough for them in the learning process, whatever it is.
Yeah.
For me, it's knowing that it's always going to be with me.
Mm-hmm.
The choices I make are always going to affect it,
Mm-hmm.
but they're my choices.
Right.
And that's where I'm content with with this. I'm
Yeah.
content knowing the fact that I have control
Mm-hmm.
99.9% of the time
Yeah.
of my pain.
Right.
That's what it is for me.
Perfect. Could not have ended off on a better note. So, oh, Danielle, thank you. I cannot believe the hour has gone by. Like it really went fast. There's going to be so many beautiful nuggets for our listeners to pick apart from this. And so that's why the recording is important. So thank you. Thank you. Is there anything you wanted to end off with? Anything we may have missed?
Not from all this.
Okay.
Other than the fact that it looks like you have a lot of great sessions lined up.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you.
I've done a lot of like the LMFT or something. I forget the tapping.
Yeah, EMF or
I've done that.
EMT.
EMFT. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Oh, good girl.
I've done that. My mom's certified in it.
Oh, really? Yeah. Oh, amazing.
So, yeah, I'm excited to see what else, you've got for us.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you again. I can't thank you enough. And I hope the rest of the months and the days ahead are feeling pretty good and you cruise through this pregnancy. Anyway.
Thank you. Well, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you again from all of our listeners.